VA home loans, that is what we're talking about. It is 2026, and there is still crazy just misunderstanding, miscommunication with VA home loans. My goal here is to teach you and educate you, and if you so choose to use me, I am a licensed mortgage broker. I work nationwide. I'm a veteran myself, and my niche is home loans, but I do everything. I work on the commercial side. I work on the residential side. There's pretty much nothing, well, I wouldn't say nothing I can't do. There's actually quite a bit that I can't do, but needless to say, I'm here to help my fellow veterans get 100% use out of their VA home loan. So getting into it, what is a VA home loan? Look, there are hundreds of different types of loans, and it really depends on what you want. Traditional, FHA, DSCR, jumbo, mega jumbo, land loans, VA construction loans. We're just talking about your plain Jane normal VA home loan, right? So it is backed by the Department of Veterans Affairs, right? Its goal is to help its servicemen and women who have served our country become homeowners, right? You've done, whether it was your minimum contract or 20 years, 30 years, whatever it was, it is their way of giving back. It helps you get a home, right? Now notice I said it is backed by the Department of Veteran Affairs. It doesn't, they're not the ones who are doing the loan. They actually have very, very little to do with the entire process other than giving the yes, no if you are eligible for the loan. But it doesn't really come from them. Who is eligible? And like I said, if I explain this and you don't know, I mean, send me a message. I would love to help you out. I would love to get you into a home today, 2026. Let's go. So who is eligible? First things first, veterans in active duty. I mean, I've never met someone who was on active duty that didn't classify as a veteran. So that's kind of one and the same there. With that, as long as you were, honorably discharged, not even that, as long as you weren't dishonorably discharged, you're good to go. You got those titles, problem solved. Spouses, right? If you are a spouse of a veteran or a spouse of somebody in active duty, you can use their VA loan under certain guidelines and stipulations. If they are MIA or, God forbid, were killed in action, line of duty, or died out of duty due to a disability. There are a lot more stipulations in things. It's a little different of a formula to use. So moving on to National Guard and Reserves, you guys, right? You do get a VA home loan. Your math is a little bit different though. You have to do one or the other, or both. Most people just do the one. Option A, you served 6 years, right? You went to drill for 6 years. I'm not sure what the Guard calls it, but whatever. You did that for 6 years. You are eligible for a VA home loan. Your other option is you were activated on Title 10 or qualifying Title Chapter 31. Which basically just means that you were called on active duty and you served 90 days consecutively. The easiest example I can think of is that you were deployed to somewhere like, again, this is 2026. I'm not going to jinx anything, but if you were deployed overseas for 90 days during wartime or whatnot, hey, you are now classified as a veteran, therefore you are qualified. But other than that, most people in the military actually end up qualifying for this because it's kind of hard not to. Benefits and not benefits of a VA loan, right? So the number one thing is no private mortgage insurance. I'm going to give you an example here of if you were to use a conventional loan, right? If you do not put 20% down for that conventional loan, you have to pay something called private mortgage insurance. And that is basically because the bank or institution that is lending you the money out looks at this and says, man, this is a giant risk. I'm giving you everything and I get nothing. So you kind of make it up to them by paying them monthly up to 20% when you get 20% equity in your house. Most of the time, in my example of a conventional loan, is that it stops and you don't have to continue to make that payment. It's just till you reach that little safeguard for the lenders. Now, the price on that can vary. I've seen it, go to, $300 before. So it really depends. But VA home loan, you don't have to do that. And it saves you hundreds of thousands of dollars, up to that 20% equity mark. Zero down payment. The number one thing stopping veterans or not even veterans, just people who want to buy homes in 2026 is the down payment. It's such a massive, massive thing, right? You need all of this money and you have to shovel it and give it all away just to get your foot in the door. That's it. It's crazy, right? So of course with the VA you don't have that. Now the VA funding fee. This is the not really the good part of this, but let me pause and throw in the caveat here. If you are 10% disabled or more, my veterans out there, you don't have to pay this. This part doesn't matter to you. You are exempt from this, right? So everybody else, the spouses, the active duty people and whatnot, this is basically a fee that the VA has to impose in order to keep the VA home loan program going for other veterans. And if you are not disabled and don't meet that requirement, it's basically the cost of doing business. You're getting all of this other things, right? No down payment, no private mortgage insurance. They need to recoup something, because if they didn't have this, nobody could get a VA home loan because, you know, there's no money going back into the VA. Also, caveat, depending on where you live, if you are 100% disabled, you can be exempt from paying your taxes for your house, right? That's crazy. At least in the state of Tennessee, you know, property tax. I don't have to pay property tax. That's a pretty good little extra caveat there. Occupancy requirements. So funny enough, the VA is not the one who imposes this. It is your lender. The VA actually doesn't say anything about it, right? So this is basically, the goal is you use your VA home loan, buy a house, you grow old in this house, you have children, you die, and then you give that house to your kids, right? Something along those lines. That's what most people do. That's what the VA and your lenders using the VA home loan typically want to see. With that, the only real rule that most lenders impose on this is that it has to be your primary residence, and that's all that the VA cares about. They say you're buying this and intending for it to be your primary home. So there's really nothing stopping you from purchasing this home, living in it for a year as your primary home, and then, oh, well, I just want to buy another house and get another primary home and keep this, and then you rent it out, right? It's a pretty, people do it all the time. You can buy duplexes, you can buy quadplexes, you can go in with another veteran and, you know, just buy, there's some rule to veterans, you can buy like 9 unit, whatever. There's so much more to it. It's actually genuinely a pretty crazy thing. VA entitlement. This is the thing that gets people bugged up a lot. It's very hard, and I have a hard time explaining it. People have a hard time understanding it. The VA even has a hard time explaining it. So we're just going to cut into this nice and easy. Like, okay, so your VA entitlement. If you have never used your VA home loan, you have 100% VA entitlement, and that goes up for forever. You can buy a house, you know, you can buy $1 million house, $300,000 house, it doesn't matter. The VA entitlement, the VA will guarantee 25% of that loan, which is why lenders love this, because right off the bat, the amount of, if something were to happen to you, you bought this house and passed away or something like that, that lender doesn't have to worry as much because 25% of the entire thing is covered, right? So the example of this is, let's say you are buying your first home at $400,000, right? The VA says, okay, I'm going to cover 25% of that. So that would be $100,000. Right? So whatever your VA entitlement was, right, we're just going to remove that $100,000 off the top. And that's what your new VA entitlement is, which means you could buy another house down the line. And it basically just covers that no down payment part, right? You can have $5,000 in VA entitlement, right? And then you go to buy a house, but that $5,000 is not going to be enough to cover everything. So you'd have to pay the remainder out of pocket, but that $5,000 would help cover it. It's a very tricky thing. I'm going to make an entirely new video on it because it is probably the most complex thing when dealing with the VA home loans. That is all that I have. If you have questions or you just need help or you want to reach out or if you want to work with me, like I said, this is my job and I would love to help you out. So Like I said, this is the new channel. We're just starting everything off. You know, I redid my office to make it look a little more cool and clean and whatnot. We are still bringing this back. I hate it. It's cringy. Everybody knows that. But if you're a real service member, you know that it is corny, and that's why we're doing it. So thank you, sir or ma'am or private or whatever you are, for watching. And I hope that you get yourself in a home. Hopefully using me. That would be even better. But regardless, get you a home 2026. Clean and simple. Let's go.